Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to go over getting your school ready for the new school year. If you have not recently been into SchoolCal, you'll see that the interface has changed a lot. We've added some exciting features that I wanted to go over with you today. But first, let's just dive in. The first thing we recommend doing is checking your Google connection. We've recently added a couple of scopes, and they need to be added to your Google. Your Google will still work without those extra scopes, but we do recommend checking your required scopes. You'll need to add all of the domain-wide delegation scopes, as well as the there's a couple of scopes for the user, and that information can be found on our support site, which you can actually access right here in the sidebar. So just go to the support site and search for Google, and make sure that your Google user, if you are a Google user, has these roles. So there's 10 privileges for your special SchoolCal role, and then there are 8 that should be added to your domain-wide delegation. Okay, so that's step 1. Make sure your connections are good. Of note, if you are a new Veracross school, you do not have a Veracross 2 connection. It will say needs attention. That's okay. You can ignore it. It's been set up to ignore that connection. All right, so then let's go next to our data page. So if you haven't synced at all, you'll see this data is stale. So you'll want to reload your data before you start doing your setup. So what I typically would like to do, this would be the first thing I would do. I would come here, click on Veracross, and then click the Load All button. You can also load all over here. That's going to load everybody, though. So what we really need is to get your new schedules in to SchoolCal. Once that data load has completed, you can come back to your dashboard. And on early June, we sent out an email letting everyone know that we turned off all of the flows. We do this to prevent schools from inadvertently syncing their student schedules before they were ready. So here we can see our flows on the dashboard. We're looking at the class schedule to user calendars. So what you'll need to do is come into your student calendars, click configuration, and then you'll need to edit it. And we just want you to put your eyes on it. If you want to, you can put it in pilot mode and add 2 or 3 pilot users, sync those just to be safe. And then when those look good, you can just take it out of pilot mode. But part of what we did when we turned off the automatic syncing was we also set all of these to do not include. So you'll need to come back, academic schedule. This is our student schedule. So I'm going to include students, and it should have saved the grade levels that you had selected before. So we'll just hit save. I'm going to scroll down, check out, this person has left. So I'm just going to delete them and hit save. And then if you excluded classes, you'll need to remove them from here and exclude them once again, because the class IDs change year to year. And then, of course, you can, if you want to exclude a course, like you don't want to sync lunch or clubs or something like that, you can. But the big gotcha that we run into is the date range. You're welcome to use only the future dates, and that's going to sync for the whole entire year. If you are a large school, say over 1,000 students, we do recommend incrementally syncing. So what I would do is I would come in here and sync to, say, the end of October and hit save. And then when it syncs, it's only going to sync between now and the end of October. And then once that sync completes, you can then come in and adjust the date to be the end of, say, December, and hit save. So it'll take you 4 syncs, but each sync then skips over the first part that they've already done and only does the second part. And that just helps break it into smaller groups. So again, only future dates or from today to cutoff date. This will, if you want to just sync the first trimester or the first semester, this will do that for you. We don't recommend start and end date. A lot of people like to put this in and say the first day of school and the last day of school. But what that does is then when you're in May, it's still going to be looking at August's and September's classes and trying to sync those. So it's not very efficient use. It's better to use from today to cutoff date. All right, so that's all set. You want to check your school levels, your course types, campuses, the blocks. For these filters, we do recommend that unless there's a compelling reason to not sync, so you only want to sync middle school students. Well, you've chosen upper school students here, so they're not going to get synced. So if you leave these all selected, then you're going to catch whoever meets these criteria. You know, those whoever is in these grades. It's not going to do the little guys. And then same thing, just leave all of your campuses selected. You probably have an NA if you don't have multiple campuses. And same thing with the blocks. And if you were happy with how your things appeared last year, you can stay with that. If you want to change the description for your events, you would click Edit. Anything here on the right side can be added to your events. So let's say you've started adding a URL to your class meetings, because sometimes you might be remote, then you could add that as the location, or you could add that in the section. You can just copy it using the little clipboard and then save, and it would show it. Of course, it's not going to show anything because there is no URL for this class. But again, anything here, check your visibility options. Typically, teachers are public and students are either public or private, depending on the school policy. And then also want to check that the guests can see other guests shouldn't be there. I think that's just for this particular flow. So, because that's not possible, the guests can see other guests. So once you're all set with that, then you can click the Sync Now button. And I wanted to explain these types of syncs. So a full sync is going to load your data first, compare it to your filters, and then send any additions, deletions, or updates to the user, Google or Outlook. This is what happens, the same thing that happens in the automatic nightly sync. So if you just loaded your data, you can use a light sync. That's going to go with the data that's already loaded, so it'll go much faster because it doesn't have to already load the data, which can take 10 to 15 minutes depending on the size of your school. A catalog sync. Well, actually, let's do test sync first. Test sync, what that does is that compares what we already have or think we have, from our stored database, the events we already have, with what is in the filters, and then it runs a job, but it doesn't send anything to Google or Outlook. It just shows you the results. So you can page through the users and see, oh, this one, is going to add all their math classes or their PE classes, whatever. And then the catalog sync. So in order to speed things up, SchoolCal started this last year, but just in case you've never heard the explanation before, they started since polling the API to get the events for the user is the slowest part of the whole process. When we create an event, we store it in a local database. And so that allows us to quickly compare to the filters. We think that's what's there. However, your users have the ability to delete events because, they're free will and all that. But so once a week, we do a catalog sync, which will go to the user, poll first, and then do the comparison and the rest of the sync. So if you find that a user has deleted some bunch of stuff by accident and is like, well, I don't know, it's not coming back. It won't come back till the weekend, but you can force it to come back by running a catalog sync. So then you would just pick whichever sync you wanted and start sync. I'm not going to start a sync, obviously, because the demo database has demo data in it. All right, so you would want to come in here, do the same thing for faculty. I'm not going to go through all of them, except just to say you'll want to include your teachers again and check which types of teacher you want to include. That should be saved from the last time you used it. And then again, check your cutoff date range. And you would have to then, if you're excluding classes, you'll have to add those again, because the IDs change year to year. And then finally is the resources flow. We do recommend separate flows for, where did my resource? Oh, here it is. We do recommend separate flows for resources, students, and teachers, because a teacher is going to have 100 events. A student is going to have 1,000 events, but a resource is going to have tens of thousands of events. And so if you intermingle them all together, your jobs don't run very efficiently. Better to have approximately the same number as you're running through. So that is the overview of the flows. Let me see here. I just did want to point out that now on the left sidebar, you have some new, you have easy access to the knowledge base, or you can email support, which will create a ticket in our system. We do always recommend that. Otherwise, you might get lost among the hundreds of emails that we have. So I'm just going to pause here a minute and see if anybody has any questions. Feel free to add any questions you may have in the Q&A. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions so far. That's great. So let's move on to the big question, the user portal. Now, everybody is very excited about this. You can ignore this side of the user portal. This is the part that your faculty will see, and you can control both of these, whether they can see this or not. So this is going to allow your faculty to colorize, and of course, this user has no, but they would be able to adjust the color on their classes as well as athletic teams. If you'll give me 1 second, I just wanted to show you how to set this up. So back to Calendar Manager, you now will see that you have a user portal and platform manager. Platform manager is where you're going to manage access for your users. So here I'm going to manage the access that my users have. If you don't want users to access the color portal, no big deal. Just don't add any rules here. But if you want your users to be able to access the portal, you can choose your groups based on either your Google groups or your Veracross, or whatever your SIS, either your SIS group or your email groups. And then I already have a faculty one, so I'm going to add a student one. And then depending on whether you just want them to be able to sync colors or also be able to add a meeting. The meeting manager is, I think, an exciting new thing. This allows a person to create a recurring meeting on their calendar. Let's think to ourselves, I have faculty meeting every day 3 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Adding that is, not great. It takes a lot of coordination. So this would allow a user to add themselves. Now, this is disconnected from SchoolCal. So once they add it to themselves, then it will, that's it. They've added those events. Now they manage them themselves in their own calendar. But basically, you would add a record, and then you would add the access type, and then you would hit save. And I'm just going to cancel that. But if we come over here to user management, this is how you could allow, let's just say you've got, I'm just going to see who's got sync preferences. Oh, so let's just say you've got a department head and they want to create a meeting for their department. You can add sync preferences in Meeting Manager for that department head and hit save. And now Alan will be able to log in and sync his preferences as well as add recurring meetings. I will show you the recurring meeting and then I'll find a user where I can show you the colors. So create a meeting, it's basically step by step. So I'm going to call this LS faculty meeting. And it's a recurring meeting. I have options to invite people. If you can see the steps here on the sidebar. If I uncheck people, now I only have 5 steps instead of 6, but I'll show you all of the steps. So I'm just going to hit continue. And then I'm going to, this is kind of crazy, but this is the demo database and there's only data in here back to 2017. So I am going to go back to 2017. And then I'm gonna, sorry. Normally you would not be doing this. I should have set this up ahead of time. My apologies. All right, and we'll say June 16. All right, so I'm gonna choose the 10-day well, that's easy, too easy, the 6-day rotation. And then I'm gonna say every 5th homeroom is going to be the lower school faculty meeting for 5th graders. And we only do that, this is doing it every day of the week. We only do that on day 3. So, and then it shows me a preview of what events would be created, where the day 3s are. And again, keep in mind, this is data, this is demo data, so it's quite wonky. So then I can add people here, searching for them from my organization, and then just select the people I want to add to this meeting. And then if I need to select a resource, I can do that. And so it's going to tell me how many occurrences of this have no conflicts. So if I want to pick room 307, I would do that. Or 318, again, I know that I can see. So I'm actually not going to select it because, all right, so then you can add more details. Bring your laptop. Of course, that's going to add to all the occurrences. So, and you can make it a specific color if you wish. And we're going to say visibility is default, and you can add a reminder, or you know, like if it were, I don't know, or you can just delete the reminder, which is probably what most people are going to do. Then I'm going to continue, and it's going to show me all the events that would be created. And then I would just create the recurring meeting and it would add these all to my calendar. So, and I would also see them in my dashboard. I have past meetings here in my dashboard. So that is the recurring meetings. And I'm just going to stop my share here for a minute and switch to my other still not seeing any questions. I'm just going to switch to my other screen. My apologies for it. I should have had this prepared. Okay, so here we go. This is, I'm impersonating a user, and I'm going to choose my sync preferences. So people can turn colorization off if they don't like to have their things colored. This is a student, or they can turn them back on. It will randomly assign a color, and then they can come in here and override it to be a different color if they wish, etc., etc. They also have an option to turn on reminders. So, for example, for an athletic team, they may want a reminder because otherwise they keep forgetting their games. But they may not want a reminder for anything else. And then the next time that SchoolCal syncs whatever type, so the next time an athletic or an academic class sync runs, which would be the overnight, it will then colorize with these colors. The next time the athletic team's sync runs, it would colorize with these colors. So that is my webinar today. I'm going to stop my recording, and then if you all will hold on one second.